morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, whenever you happen to be listening. I am excited to spend a little bit of insuretech nerd time with my guest today. We were talking earlier in trying to put the puzzle pieces together of who we knew. As everybody knows, this industry that we work in is small, it's huge, but small, and our paths intersect, but sometimes we don't directly get to know one another. So this is going to be exciting for me. I was actually introduced to Sharon Fox by Crystal Boniles from TrustLayer and also Tracy Stanlin from Chisel AI. So lots of great women in the industry trying to bring more wonderful women together. So I'm excited to be talking to you today, Sharon. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Olivia. Like I said earlier, I'm really, really excited to get to know each other today and talk all things insuretech. As you know, I'm really passionate about the sector.
Yes. So it's such an exciting time to be in this part of the industry and to really watch things evolve so quickly. Like we're in a rapid pace right now, I feel like, compared to like the 10 years leading up to now and where we are right now. So yeah, I love it. And I'm excited to learn more about TrustLayer in this process as well and your role. But we talked about where you are, and I'm like, you're in Toronto. There's so much insuretech in Toronto. I'm like, I need to get to Canada, but I can't get to Canada because of this pandemic. So, what's the climate like for you guys right now?
Well, we definitely miss all of our American friends. And I think for everybody, it's all wearing on us a little. In the beginning, I don't think anybody anticipated really how long we were going to be affected by this. But with the insurance and insuretech community being so relationship based, I definitely think we're, missing conference life, cocktail hours, and things like that. So the climate in Toronto is not dissimilar to the US. People are taking it really seriously here, though. So right now we're spiking in terms of cases. So when you go downtown Toronto in the financial districts, it's actually a ghost town, and it's kind of sad. It's not the same lively place that it once was. And especially it was swimming with insuretech people, just the downtown Toronto being such a tight-knit sector of buildings even. So.
Yeah. And Toronto's a huge area. Like I think Tracy had given me the population at one time, and I had no idea how big Toronto was. Are you a native of Toronto?
Yeah, I'm native of Toronto. I grew up my high school days in a small town 2 hours north of Toronto. So I've had the best of both worlds in terms of growing up in a small town where, everybody at every high school knows each other, so to speak. But also, in my early 20s, getting to move to the big city and, getting so much opportunity and experiences that I never would have had in a small town. So it's been a really great growing up experience for me and growing into my adulthood, if you will. And Toronto, what Tracy mentioned, is 3 million in population, but it's similar to like Minnesota, the Tri-Cities area, where you have a lot of cities that bump into each other. So it's really closer to probably 6 million.
Oh my gosh. That's just insane. I was actually just in Minneapolis over the weekend, so it's funny that you would bring that up. But it's kind of the same thing. Like you go downtown and you go to these places that would normally be super busy. Now, I did go to IKEA, which was incredibly busy, and I felt like I was waiting in line forever to check out. But like you go downtown to where things would normally be bustling and all of these, the small businesses and the large corporate, and it's just like there's nobody there, and there's like this weird somberness that you feel when you're standing there.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And just the lack of ability to plan. Like I love to travel, and I, haven't been on a plane since January, and it's almost disorienting not being able to say, in February I'm doing this concert or conference or whatever. It feels very challenging to plan day to day or long term and feel really excited about the future ahead in certain respects.
Yeah, it's like a maybe we'll go and do this. Maybe we won't. So have you done any virtual events, like any virtual conferences or anything like that?
Yeah, I've done quite a few virtual events, and to be honest, and I know TechAssure and obviously ITC is on this week, so those are big insuretech events. But To be honest with you, I'm kind of getting a little bit of virtual event fatigue.
Yeah.
In the sense that there's so many, everybody's pivoted to that. And then we're also online all day doing virtual meetings, Zoom meetings, et cetera. So I think it's tough. Also working in business development and from a sales perspective, we've had our virtual booths where you just, you see the tumbleweeds go by. So I definitely, where I'd say I definitely miss the conference opportunity is really the opportunity to meet a lot of new people in an environment where people are open to doing so, and want to come by a booth and see an exhibitor versus cold calling where it may not be timely for them. So I definitely miss those organic opportunities that don't exist as much right now. So
yeah, I am with you 100%. I worked one virtual booth and I was like, anybody want to talk to me? you can't like jump out in the aisle and get anybody's attention.
Yeah, I mean, talking to other insuretechs, like, hey, anybody at your booth? And they're like, no, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't feel as bad, I guess. Yeah. They're not like, it's slamming over here. So
yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what it's like when we go back to physical events. And I just feel the tone of those is even going to be so much different. So so tons of unknowns, and no way to really effectively plan. Even like, I think most of us thought, like, as this has gone on, I think like at least I should say, I felt like by October I would have some certainty about 2021. And now I'm like, nope, not at all. Somebody said, I'm hoping by June of 2021 about something. And I was like, wow, that feels like a really long ways away.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
I know. What's bizarre about this is, at least for me, is this year has gone by incredibly fast. Mm-hmm. And maybe that wouldn't be for everybody because everybody's in a different circumstance, but I think I'm lucky that it's gone by fast and that, days haven't dragged on. I've been employed. But June 2021 will probably be here before we know it. Yes. But I also think, all year, everybody's had this plan about 2021 being different. I think as we come to the end of 2020, it's becoming, we're realizing that things may not be as different as we hoped. So the getting back to normal is a relative term now. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, but I think there is some health in that level of acceptance that we're gonna figure it out at each stage as those stages come, and not trying to predict. Like, I don't read any predictive news at this point about when you'll be able to go to a hotel and actually enjoy amenities at a hotel, and even things.
And I can go on it when I can go on a date again without being like, ooh, I don't know, So.
Yes. So that happened. I was out on a date and a friend texted me. They're like, "Are you wearing a mask?" I'm like, on a date? Like, that feels weird, but no. Thanks for asking. So then I felt weird. I'm like, I guess I shouldn't go out anymore.
Well, it's like, this better be good because I'm expanding my bubble. And if I get sick from you and you're not good, then I'm not going to be happy about this.
Yes, exactly. And then I'm just writing off dating until 2021 for sure.
But a whole other heightened risk in dating. There's an insurance policy there, I think. So anybody who's listening, could you work on that, please? We need to have event cancellation insurance for our dates, and maybe a health insurance policy. Recourse if I get sick. So.
Some loss of income, whatever. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. So, life in Toronto, you're still obviously actively employed. TrustLayer has a lot of things going on. But I want to dig into obviously what they do, why you love it, but like, how did your insurance journey bring you to TrustLayer?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I like my story, so I'm excited to tell it. So I'm actually the through and through insurance geek. I started off my career in HR, and I found I was very much a for the people person. And I went on a trip to California. Absolutely loved it. Started researching sectors that had jobs that were high in demand there, and came across the insurance industry. And it really ticked off all the boxes in terms of, who I was in terms of my morals and values. Insurance industry is about helping people. Mm-hmm. helping people in peril get back on their feet. And I think on a face value level, you think policies and invoices, but that's not really what the people in the industry are here to do.
Right.
So I actually ended up going to school for business administration in insurance. So one of the few people that really, really chose the sector.
Yeah.
And coming out of school, I had a short stint in property damage claims. And from there, I moved on to Aon, working with mining and power companies. And it was an amazing experience because I got to work with firms on a global basis, and place insurance all over the world. So I got to learn about the regulatory body in Africa and the US and just the different challenges associated with that. Then in terms of just insurance expertise and acumen, I got to work across kind of all lines of coverage and get that really strong generalist knowledge. But through that experience at Aon, I was working mostly with companies that had a CFO or VP finance that was managing risk and insurance. And as you probably know, that can be a full-time job on top of a full-time job. And I didn't really feel like they had the time or expertise, frankly, to immerse themselves in the enterprise risk aspect of their roles. So I actually started my own company doing risk management consulting, specifically for the mining sector. And I was really successful in that. I actually participated in a women's business accelerator that was specifically for women in mining that was sponsored by Global Affairs Canada, Business Development Canada, as well as Deloitte. So just, it was a really, really amazing experience in terms of just putting yourself out there. And I still do some consulting on the side today. So I still have that business. And through that experience working with clients, I realized how poor the client experience was. Just like the brokerage side, the client's chasing paper, they're chasing invoices, they're not able to track certificates. From every avenue, what I thought was going to be better about the experience truly wasn't. I was like, this is actually worse because now I can't go to the underwriter. I have to go through an intermediary. And I spent a lot of time reading about insuretech at that time and really started to develop a passion for it and following some different companies. And I came across Indio Technologies, and I really liked the story and what they were doing in terms of the commercial line solution. So I went on their website. They're based out of Austin and San Francisco. Here I am in Toronto. I'm like, nope, no jobs for Canadians. Surprise, surprise. So I took a leap and I reached out to their head of marketing on LinkedIn, and he got back to me right away. And I said, I really liked what they were doing and just wanted to set up a call. I thought there was an opportunity for them here in Canada. He graciously obliged, and we had a call right before Indio raised their Series B round. So it would have been probably last March, I want to say, which feels like such a short time ago.
Yeah.
And I pitched them on launching in the Canadian marketplace, and they were receptive to the idea. So they flew me down to Austin. I had an interview with many of the team members there. And then I ended up moving to Austin last fall to help them with not only training, but, with the Canadian infrastructure. And then I came back and brought the product to Canada. So I can say I was I was the first, only and last Canadian employee for Indio. As everybody knows, that they were acquired by Applied in December of last year, which is an amazing and one of the few, I think, insuretech success stories as it relates at least to a very successful transaction in a short period of time. Just the impact the team made on the market in terms of solution, but also just a infectious company culture. So despite being a short experience under the Indio umbrella, it was still an amazing experience, especially for me coming from the brokerage world to insuretech, because it was really challenging. And it taught me that really you can pivot to any industry. I got a Mac my first day at Indio, and I'd never used one before. And I was like, great, I don't even know how to use my computer. We have to go home tonight and learn the buttons, So it was really intimidating for me coming from the world of paper, so to speak. So from there, after the Applied acquisition, obviously there was a lot of change, and Applied had a large sales force and representation in Canada. And what that meant for me is the opportunity wasn't the same way I pictured or envisioned it for myself. But even with that, it was kind of exciting to get 2 jobs in 6 months, in the sense that now I can say I work for Applied and Indio.
Yeah.
And in that short time I got to work at Applied, I really got to see inside how the company worked, learn a lot more about their technology, which is great transferable knowledge for me to have now. Coming outside of Applied, given how big they are in the technology world and insurance, you can't not know about them. Right. So with that, I decided I was not going to stay at Applied, and I started, like I mentioned earlier, reaching out to Jeff Roy and other people that were really dialed in the technology space. And I asked them what companies they were seeing, what they really liked. And I got some introductions. On my own, kind of again, through the Indio story, I came across TrustLayer, and I really liked what they were doing and went on their website. And immediately I was like, yes, this is, another, let's call it Indio or success story coming. I feel it. I know I joke today that I'm the Lori Grenier of insuretech, because I have a sense of the heroes and the zeros, so to speak. Yep. Want to call them that. So through LinkedIn, once again, I reached out to somebody at TrustLayer and got connected with the wonderful John Ford, the CEO. And he told me a little bit about what they were doing, which I'll tell you in a minute. But the stars aligned. He was like, I'm looking for a head of business development. I'm like, that's exactly the kind of role I'm looking for. And he was kind of like, can you start tomorrow? So it was really kind of an overnight experience in terms of me joining TrustLayer and the opportunity. It was very, very serendipitous, like everything coming together at the right time. And, I'm so lucky now for my experience at Indio, because it was that stepping stone to get me to TrustLayer, if you will.
Yeah. So, and they're a great group over there. I just remember meeting those guys at the beginning of their story and just being like, oh, wow, like this is fascinating work. So yeah.
Absolutely great work and great team. Like I said to my boss at Indio, I've never worked at a place where people after work leave and want to hang out with each other to like every day, and that are friends and that are, inviting each other to people's baby showers and stuff like that. So it was a really special place to be. And I was really excited to get that time in Austin with the team as well. Because otherwise I was working remotely. So switching to this remote world wasn't really a big pivot for me. But what really attracted me to TrustLayer and the solution that they're providing is most brokers today are not just placement focused. They want to be that trusted outsourced risk manager and add other value added services. And the Aon of the Marshes of the world obviously have very, very deep pockets and can tout all this data and analytics. I don't really think they deploy it and sell it well to their customers. But what I do think is brokerages are continually looking for value added services to be that extension of the team and really help companies with their ERM and their operations piece. So this is what immediately attracted me to TrustLayer is a technology that allows brokers to offer a value-added service to their insureds. So not only are they able to help their insureds with their vendor risk management, they're also able to drive another revenue stream for the agency. So it's kind of win-win for everybody in that situation. And what TrustLayer technology does is when 2 parties try to work together, there's often friction in starting that relationship. And that could be KYC information.
Just a little bit.
Signing a contract, going on a date. No, I'm just kidding. But obviously that's often proof of coverage. And today, when a certificate's issued, that's often a back and forth manual process that has, very error prone, frankly. But every time a certificate's issued, it's because somebody else requested it on the other end.
Right.
And that requester today really has no mechanism of tracking their documents and actually tracking them to make sure they meet the contractual risk requirements.
Absolutely.
So what TrustLayer does is automates a lot of this process. So when we have a certificate uploaded into the system through AI and machine learning, we're actually able to extract the data from that document, compare it against a contract requirement, and say yes or no whether or not a party is compliant. We also can take it a step further beyond certificates. So if the insured says, well, we need a W-9 or a COVID-9 form filled out or a contract sign, we can also facilitate all of that through the platform. So it's really a collaborative vendor risk management platform where now the insured and the broker can get together on this vendor risk management component. What TrustLayer is automating a lot of the process. So when a policy is up for expiration, TrustLayer branded to whatever company will reach out to that third party and request documents. So really our solution is a downstream solution, but we work with carriers and brokers to offer this solution to their customers. Because if I approach, Home Depot, it will probably take me 2 years to get a meeting with anybody at Home Depot.
Right.
Where a broker can walk it into this solution into the risk manager and find out the pain and really resolve that pain right away. So that's what TrustLayer is up to today. This is our SaaS solution, our 1.0 in market. But we're still dealing with paper, and that's a problem. So what we've created is a solution for this legacy workflow. But the real opportunity here is for us to connect with carriers and AMS providers to provide digital proof of coverage. So when the certificate's uploaded or when a contractor links their policy, we'll be able to message the carrier in real time and say, do they have this coverage and is it in force? And the message back from the carrier will be yes or no. So that we can provide more meaningful data in real time, but the carriers can still keep their information behind their firewalls. So as we compete in the industry, Aon and Marsh aren't going to share data direct with one another. Right. But if it's for solving a major industry problem and they can, ping from a decentralized place, TrustLayer, that's a real opportunity for the industry. So we're working with a number of carriers and broker partners on that proof of concept. And we're really excited to be probably taking on some capital by the end of the year as well to significantly grow our team. So, on this call, if anybody's listening and is interested in working with TrustLayer, we will be hiring quite a few people this year and early next year. So it's really exciting for us, the growth we've had on our 1.0 and 2.0 solution. And then the broader market opportunity is when somebody doesn't have the right coverage or is not insured, that's an opportunity to place coverage. Yes. So carriers and brokers alike are excited because we have a plethora of data, which we can identify all of these third parties, a subcontractor that wants to come on site that doesn't have workers' comp. Well, now we can get them workers' comp and we can get them on site faster and even be able to quote them through the system. So this is the bigger picture of our opportunity in terms of longer term vision. But today, what's really exciting is we're working with almost 15 of the top 100 agencies in the US, and they're actively onboarding their insureds, at least in some cases 3 to 5 a month. And that can be, just a small Joe the plumber, or anywhere up to like large stadiums and large enterprises. So the solution's really built for any size of company and also priced as such.
Yeah, which is so necessary, right? Because it seems like a lot of the insuretech solutions, the price tag isn't affordable. For even like a top 100 agency might find it to not be affordable for them, or there's not going to be the return on investment, or it's not going to bring them the efficiency that they're looking for given the price that they're going to have to pay for it. And so that affordability factor obviously is challenging. Everybody needs to be able to make money at the end of the day, but to be able to provide that solution in a way that is affordable, which makes it easier to onboard and obviously expand the business. So it's like you guys are you're creating this layer of transparency while still protecting data, but you're removing red tape and keeping everybody protected at the same time, those are the two big things.
Yeah. And the cost thing is, like, to your point, most insuretechs are a liability on the balance sheet in the sense that you owe a bill, but we're a revenue stream. So I would say, like, they're red, I'm green. Don't tell me about what's in your budget, because the cost is passed off downstream to the insured. Yeah. So for an agency to use our solution, it arguably doesn't cost them anything other than time and resources in terms of selling and implementation, right. Which is just as valuable. And to your point on the cost, I don't think people appreciate that there's no more one size fits all to technology in an agency. So they're buying an AMS, but they're building a tech stack around that. So I had asked another insuretech, like, who are your competitors? And they had said, whoever else is after those same budget dollars. So it doesn't matter if we have the same solution. It's if we're after those same budget dollars. And I thought it was a really good point to make, to your point on the agency side. So.
Yeah, it's so true. And I as you were talking, I was like, oh my gosh, I can remember all of these problems at the agency level. Like it was, I mean, and it was stuff that we battled and saw maybe incremental, like just very small improvements in that process over the 15 years that I was on the agency side. And so it is kind of funny when you see it, like, because it's like, it's a flip. This is a big, it's like a 180 in the process on the agency side. So do you guys provide, like, how is that? What does that onboarding process look like for an agency or for any, I mean, do you find that people naturally adapt to it just because of the ease of it?
Great question. So there's some agencies that are actually already providing this compliance management services, and they're sometimes using a legacy provider that is, very manual, hasn't evolved in a very long time. So they're not able to scale the service in the agency. So those are simple onboarding from a value standpoint, because they know they already have insureds that use the service and value it, and they really want to use TrustLayer to scale it to more customers. That kind of onboarding is more of just the data transfer, which TrustLayer is really built tools to streamline. The biggest question is how much data do you want to move over? And then we'll tell you how long it takes.
Yeah.
But we've taken over customers that are onboarding 5,000 certificates of insurance with us, thousands of third parties. And we can do it in a bulk, pretty seamless manner. So we're also an open API platform. So we're building out several third-party integrations so we can just push and pull and everybody's happy. But on the other end of that, we work with agencies that don't provide any kind of a service like this right now. And that onboarding process is very different because we're actually often having to help them set up the infrastructure, as well as training the teams on selling, because they're not, now we're asking them to sell a technology. So it's very, and that's sometimes, investors ask us, what's your confidence in broker being able to sell technology? And we're like, well, not very well. But that's part of our white glove concierge service. It's not just, here's your technology, have a nice day. We're here to really work with the agency to make sure it's a success. And sometimes that's, setting up a new service, which can be intimidating as well.
So do you get many discussions with agencies about just bad data? Because I feel like that's just a prevalent issue across the industry.
Not so much about bad data, but I can share some anecdotal things on that. What we do get conversations about first and foremost is data and analytics and reporting. So what they want to know is, yes, how the system works and workflows is, but then what can I do with the data that's in the system? And the good news about TrustLayer is it's been built off of that mindset as well. So pretty much anything that goes into our system, you can report on it. And not only can you report on it, you can report on it in real time. You can still export it into your old school, a spreadsheet or a CSV, but you can filter and field by hundreds of different things. So it not only how we thought of data and analytics, but how we report and what one insured may need versus another can be totally tailored and customized. However, we also try to educate on the importance of streamlining your reporting so that you don't get sloppy with your data. Bad data in, bad data out.
Right.
But one thing I have learned through brokers and their AMSs is the struggle with data and the fact that it's not streamlined. And my understanding from the AMS side is you can customize a lot of your fields in your AMS. So the problem for the industry now is nobody has standardized information.
Right.
So when you want real-time quoting and a carrier says, sure, and then you find out you have no streamlined data sets, you realize really what a mess you're in. And you even talk to some agencies that have bought some BI tools to pull all of their AMS data out and create their own reporting dashboards outside of the AMS because one, they don't necessarily trust the integrity of the information, but they don't have control over how it's reported in many cases. So we definitely hear that pain. Luckily, it's not from our platform.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's one of those things I think that agencies battle as they need to bring in new technology. The prep work can be a little bit intimidating for an agency. So being able to provide those whatever level of onboarding services that they need so that they're getting the most out of the product. Because I think it's just one of those things. It's like you can have shiny object syndrome, but you really need to figure out what your agency needs to do and what solutions really work. And then what's the road look like, and kind of building that roadmap.
Yeah, and the buy-in, like you have to have the top-down buy-in.
Yeah.
And I think the best agencies that implement technology create internal marketing campaigns around it. They'll create videos and promote it over and over and really repeat the messaging instead of just putting something in front of them being like, here, use it. So I think the way that top-down buy-in and the way the information is presented is make or break for the technology, frankly. So I think, and Ryan Deeds, I've heard him say it a few times on the podcast, the technology is only as good as the implementation and the adoption. So if you don't have that, there's no point in buying the technology.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need all pieces working together for sure.
Definitely.
Yes. So, I mean, I think it'll be very exciting to see TrustLayer continue to evolve. I mean, that you guys you're definitely at the beginning of like a really significant journey.
Yeah, we really are. I mean, we're still very much in our infancy in terms of, I think, our story. And we have a great product today, but I think the sky's the limit and how it will evolve. And, I'm really excited to be on that. I'm kind of on the journey with our customers as well. When a new feature comes out, I'm equally as excited as anybody as the next person. So I definitely think so from a technology and customer standpoint, but also from an investor standpoint. It's really exciting to see more and more people want to be involved in our company in a monetary way. I think it's really added validation, which is nice to have when you work so hard day to day, to have people actually hear about your company and hear good things. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys are doing some I mean, it's just like it's so needed. I don't want to call it worthy. That's just the wrong word, but I just think it's like the necessity to really bring those more automated solutions to the little things that you could maybe write off as not taking a ton of time, but then you look at it and go, no, we're not doing this as well as we could be doing it. So it's not usually one big thing that's sucking up all of the time. It's just these little things that get.
No, but it's also peeling back the onion and finding how much it matters to different stakeholders, but what matters. When you talk to a carrier, contractual risk transfer really matters to them. And they ask you, are you tracking your vendors? So if the company's not, they care. And then when you talk to insureds, their workers' comp audits, you'll say, do you get assessed additional premium for not tracking your third parties? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, you're paying at the end of the term when the carrier's off risk, so you're getting nothing for your money, right? So it's until you start having those conversations and asking questions and identifying the pain in all the stakeholders, you don't really realize there's a problem. And I think sometimes for us, we're opening the eyes sometimes of the broker to when they go back to their insured with questions we give them, they're like, oh, this is a real problem for our customers that we could be solving. And then that's when they really start to get excited about our product. So
which is great. It's great. Well, it'll be interesting to see how this story continues. So as you look at this journey, which I just think is fascinating, like you just kind of like went out and made these connections, and it's led to these so many great things in your career, and really just a really condensed amount of time, which is amazing. But as you look at this and you think through it, what is one of the biggest lessons that you've learned along the way?
A few micro and macro, I would say. But I think I said it earlier to you, but it's never too late, which it sounds so cliche or like you're never too old. But I really, really believe in that. And I think for myself, even, in my early to mid 20s, I was, my biggest barrier in terms of, well, I'm an insurance person now. Why could I go to technology? I don't know anything about technology, things like that. So I definitely think that my biggest lesson has been one, that it's never too late, but that you can pivot and really do anything. Going from, in the last 3.5 years, I worked at a brokerage that I probably could have worked at for 20 years. And at one point, I probably saw that for myself, to starting my own business, which I never would have imagined I would have the gusto to do. Also, when I was younger, I was terrified by sales. I was like, commission, oh, I don't know. So just learning that about myself was that's actually a strength of mine. And then it really propelled me to where I am today. So as I have younger women approaching me about advice in their careers, that's what I suggest to them, because it's so easy to get in your own head about something as to why it won't work, instead of just trying it, because you truly, truly only regret the things you didn't do, not the things that you did and potentially failed or it didn't work out the way you anticipated. So
yes, I feel like that quote comes up in my Pinterest feed at least once a week. And I'm like, okay, this is the message to just go and do that thing that you're hesitating on.
Yeah, so. Tom Segura, the comedian, which I'm very, very into comedy, he has a good line in one of his, as about, don't be afraid to follow your dreams. Just be prepared that they may not work out exactly as you planned. But you will still be fulfilled by following that dream or that goal, if you will. And I was like, Tom Segura, so insightful in this comedy. Thank you for that moment. But it really stuck with me, that kind of thing, because I do think it's true. So I think, personally and professionally, those are two big things that stick with me day to day.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. I love it. I love it. I love that I got that reminder from you today too. I needed it. So as you have evolved in this journey, I'm sure you've had so many people that have just mentored you. You've mentioned people already in this interview that have had an impact and encouraged you in that kind of thing in their own subtle way, just in doing their job. So can you think of, somebody that has had a significant impact, maybe a mentor or family member or whatever?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely family that I'm very much inspired by, and those would be definitely my grandparents. I was lucky enough I still am lucky to have one grandparent, but have them to a point in life that many don't get that experience. And they have played a huge impact in the person I am. And for a few reasons. One, my grandpa was an immigrant to Canada. So I'm awe-inspired by anybody who's willing to take on that kind of a risk in life, and how terrifying that must be. So generally immigrants in general, I appreciate, but I just appreciate him for that, and really starting our whole family in Canada, because I wouldn't be here today without him. And then also both of my grandmothers, because they were extremely charitable people, very involved with the community. My grandmother, volunteered at the nursing home she ended up living in, so very inspired by those women in my life. And then of course I come from a family of 4 kids. My brother's really inspiring to me, but also my sisters. I have an older sister that's a very, very strong, powerful woman, and really by 5 years old, she was convincing me I could do anything, standing up for me in the playground. And she's definitely influenced me greatly in my life. And then I think 2 people just on like I guess celebrity business person or entrepreneur level, 2 people that I'm very much inspired by. Is one, Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx.
Yeah.
And I just really love her story, because seems very, very down to earth, despite her success. But also her road hasn't necessarily been perfect, and that she got married a little bit later in life. She has 4 beautiful children. So I'm very inspired by her, just in her story, but also her personal life and just the way she carries herself in business. And then another woman I'm also very inspired by is Sally Krawcheck, who isn't as well known, but she has a robo investment firm called Elvest.
Okay.
And she used to be CFO of a few banks on Wall Street and was like publicly fired from them. She wrote this amazing book called Own It. It's a really great story. But what I love about her is she's so vulnerable about her career adversity, despite being so successful on paper. You know, being a CFO of a Wall Street bank, I would say is pretty great accomplishment. And when there was very few women at the table. But what her book really goes through is negotiating your worth. And I've literally read it 3 times. I have it marked up. It's like my professional Bible, if you will. And just through her advice and reading her book, you know, I've been able to accelerate not only my career, but my worth and negotiating that. And I'm continually inspired by her story because, you know, here she was fired from this bank and then went out and started her own technology company, similar pivot, has raised millions of dollars, and is not only helping herself, but millions of other women achieve their financial and professional goals. So definitely love her story and have been inspired by her. So
yeah, that's amazing. I wrote that down. I was like, oh, I got to check out this book.
Because I buy it for everybody that I can because it's just so great. I know lots of other women that have faced adversity in their careers for many reasons. And I think she just gives some really good, tangible advice that you can put to work for yourself. So,
yeah. So speaking of which, perfect segue. I feel like I shouldn't mention it if it's that perfect, right? How do we bring more women along in leadership or just taking that next step in their career? You've just kind of like gone for it. It sounds like, I mean, I guess there's probably some hesitation and second thoughts that you've had to battle as you've moved through your career, but how do we just like get to that next, help other women get to that next stage?
Well, I think there's 2 ways. Women really, really need to champion and empower one another. And I think all too often, I'm guilty of it as well, but we fall victim to cattiness sometimes, or you know, wanting equal footing because we've all fought to get to the same place. And sometimes I think women are almost detrimental to themselves in business settings because they're not as uplifting to each other as maybe men are to one another. And I think a good example of this that I pick up on when I watch TV shows like Shark Tank or Dragon's Den is the women on the show. They all bicker with one another. It's television, but I notice the women, when they get into deals with one another, are more catty towards another. Or and I don't know if it's just me noticing that, but I think that's a big problem with women uplifting one another. And then I do really feel that men need to be champions of women, and not enough are. And I saw this book just while we're chatting, because I think it's an important book to mention in this conversation. Sheryl Sandberg this book that just came out. And it's called Good Guys, How Men Can Be Better Allies for Women in the Workplace. And I think this book needed to be written because I think there's a lot of men out there that say they're champion of women, you know, on International Women's Day, they're posting. But what does that really mean to be a champion of women and other diverse groups as well? And to me, you know, what we need is, if there are men in a room and there is, you know, no person of color or no women, we need a man to say that. Yeah. A woman, you know, waving the flag outside of the room, asking to come in, isn't the solution we need. So I think the ownership is, sometimes I think the ownership's put on women, and it needs to be put on all of us. Yeah. You know, every stakeholder at a company needs to hold companies accountable. You know, investors need to say, you know, why do you have any women on your leadership team? Why don't you have any women on your board? So when customers need to look at companies and say, am I going to choose to work with this company because they have a diverse group of people that work for them? So I think the more stakeholders that care and bring up the conversation, that will make change. However, being a vocal woman, I also know that sometimes when you talk about the problems, you become the problem. And that can be a really, really tough balance to strike in trying to make change. So one piece of advice I gave to my colleague when she had a negative experience is sometimes when you're a trailblazer or looking to make change, you may not always see it for yourself. It may be for the people that come after you. So that's the risk you take in changing and challenging the status quo, I think, sometimes in a professional world. So
yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So if you could go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, and I feel like you've dropped little nuggets throughout this interview so far already, but like, can you think of a piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Leave him. Leave him. You don't need that sweater. Start your retirement savings and investing earlier. And yeah, going back to that tidbit, if I knew I had the entrepreneurial spirit I did, and the guts, if I didn't let fear and uncertainty lead my decision making in my younger days, I think I could have done some pretty cool things that I maybe didn't. And it's not necessarily regrets. It's just knowing myself better and, realizing my potential a couple of years too late, so to speak. Or
Yeah. The self-realization and awareness is like something, I don't know, like I feel like I'm just now figuring it out. And I do, like, as I was talking to somebody in the industry that was much younger, I was like, gosh, you are so self-aware. Like, how do you know yourself so well? Like,
I blame my parents. Like, why? Yeah. And even, when I look at, people like Mike Furlong at Indio, he started Indio when he probably wouldn't want me to say his name right now, but I will. He started it when he was 26. So, when I had that idea for Indio, when I was 23. So, if I had gone out there and done it, who knows what, and I'm not jealous by any means, I'm so happy for Mike, but, if you would go out there and do those things you just think about doing, but you let something hold you back, great things can happen and great learning experiences can happen. So
yeah, you're always going to learn something, right? Even if it doesn't work out, you're always going to learn something for sure. Okay. So now the secret question. Are you ready?
Oh my God. So excited.
So if you could play DJ for 5 minutes, everybody has to listen to whatever song you choose. What song are you picking?
Good question. I feel like this answer would change depending on my mood, and I've been listening to some really embarrassing music in quarantine. But I think, everybody loves a good rap, so I'd probably do, Salt and Pepper, something definitely 90s. But I can impress people with some hidden talents by. So.
You and Jeff Roy have this in common as well. Is that what you're saying?
And our passion for Caesars as well. I don't know if he's ever made you one of his, like, I've never had one. I've only seen them in images, but they look pretty bomb. So.
Yeah. As soon as I can get into Canada, I believe I have like a pending poolside invitation. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I do send him pictures whenever I have one. And then he sends a picture back, and his is always so much fancier and more elaborate. But yeah, I love salt and pepper and your Bloody Mary. I love it. Oh my gosh. Oh yes, this is fantastic. Well, I have had just a wonderful time. I feel like my my insurance nerdiness like craving has been filled. Good. During this interview, and I'm so excited to see like this is such it's just like one of those little missing puzzle pieces, and you guys are just pulling so much in there, and then you're going to continue to add more things to it, and I think it's going to be just such a necessary part of what agencies and brokers need to be able to and carriers to be able to function better together in the same ecosystem. So this is going to be an exciting journey. I'm so glad that I got to know you better today.
Me too, Olivia. It was so awesome. And I'm just so excited for anybody listening to, hear my story, but also excited to hear people and watch and see the TrustLayer story as we evolve. And, anybody who wants to be a part of it, shameless plug now, whether it is be a customer, an investor, an employee, we welcome any interest. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out if anybody wants to learn more.
Yes, absolutely. I will make sure that there is a link so you guys can connect with Sharon. And and this is going to be great. I can't wait until we get to catch up on phase 2 of TrustLayer and everything that you're up to.
Hopefully it's in person at a conference.
So. Yes, absolutely. I have like a list of people I need to meet in person at this point. So yes, I very much hope so.
Great. That'll be an awesome reunion.
Yeah. Yes, it will. Well, Bloody Marys all around and Caesars.
We'll say hi to Jeff for me tomorrow on your panel, and I wish you luck. I think you'll do an awesome job. So.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, Sharon.
Thanks, Olivia.
Thank you. Bye.